Hi friends, my name is Marissa May and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about something a little different than I normally talk. If you've been here before, you know that I focus mainly on instruction. I'm an online teacher, but in 2023, I want to focus a little bit on more of this mantra, always learning. So in addition to being a teacher, I'm a mom of 5. And so I do lots of things to keep learning even while I'm being a mom or I'm being a teacher. And so in this video, I want to talk about some of the things I do to always keep learning. And so we're going to talk about my top 2 books that I read in 2022. Now, I've got to be honest with you. I'm a book nerd. Anybody with me? Let me know in the comments below if that's you as well. I am a book nerd, which is kind of crazy because I'm a math teacher. So how does a math teacher become a book nerd? I just like to keep learning. And so books are my way to do that. And so I set a goal in 2022 to read 60 books. And yes, I did hit 60 books. If you want to know how I keep that kind of reading schedule, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll do another video that lets you know how to keep reading and how to hit a goal as much as 60 books. Now, maybe you've read more books than that. 60 was my goal in 2022, and I think I'm going to do another video on my 2023 goals. So stay tuned. But in this video, we're going to focus on my top 2 books that I read in 2022, and maybe they'll inspire you to check those books out or to maybe set a reading goal for yourself. So let's start with the first one. And that was my number 1 book recommendation, and that's Atomic Habits by James Cleary. I fell in love with this book. So I'm an Enneagram 3, an achiever. Checklists are my jam. And so James Cleary talks about things like habit stacking and how to put systems in place that help you achieve your goals. And was, man, speaking my love language on this one. I recommend it. It's probably a book I'm going to reread in 2023 so that I make sure I don't miss anything. It's one of those things that I got so much out of it. I'm a highlighter and a note taker. So when you look in this book, there's tons of little notes on the side that I want to go back and make sure I try to implement because there were so many great takeaways for this book. Now, I'll be sure and link it below for you. I read it based on a recommendation from another author that I had read. And so I love recommendations. If you have a book that you would recommend that's like this one, I would love to hear it because it's definitely an area that I want to improve on. And like I said, probably going to be a reread for me in 2023 just because I enjoyed it so much and had so many practical things I could put into place with reaching my goals, but also putting in systems that I was able to meet some of the other goals that I have, not only for my personal and my professional life. My second recommendation is by Lysa TerKeurst, Forgiving What You Can't Forget. This was this was timely for me. So just so you know, after 2020, the pandemic, I have 5, as I mentioned, I have 5 children, but 3 of them had some struggles with some anxiety and things like that. And this book, I know the title can be a little confusing, but this book was huge for me in validating some of the feelings that I was having and teaching me to validate the feelings my kids were having. It was a great takeaway. Again, I'm a huge highlighter, note taker. So I've got this chocked full of all kinds of little side notes for myself. I did also read her book, Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. And again, another recommendation that I would suggest if you're having those kinds of, not just issues, but if you want to learn more about how to set good boundaries in your life. I felt like Lysa was definitely speaking in a very common, easy to understand language. So yeah, I always love that. I don't know about you. I can get academic and I can get all wordy and things like that. But sometimes when an author can just break it down into easy to understand language, I really appreciate that because it's easy to implement then for me. And so Forgiving What You Can't Forget, and then also side note, I also read Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. Definitely easy reads, and also worth your time. Now, as a little bonus, those were my top 2 reads in 2022. I had never read those books before until 2022. But I'm also going to share one of my mainstays. I read this book probably every single year. It's maybe because I'm a teacher by trade. Maybe it's because I'm an Enneagram 3 and I just want to keep learning and all those things. But this is a good one for anyone. You don't have to be in education to read this book, and that is Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. This book really put into words what it was I felt in my own personal journey of learning, and that is that growth mindset, right? That just because things are the way they are today does not mean that I am a victim and that I have no control over the future, but instead it gives me room and space to grow and to continue learning and developing. I reread this book probably every year just because it does have some application to education. It does have some application because I'm a mom and I have kiddos that I want to encourage in a growth mindset. But also because it just really helps me to refocus on, I am working on things in my life, and I'm working on not only my skill set, my relationships, my all of those different areas are huge. And it helps me not to get bogged down with the woe is me and I'm stuck here kind of mentality. And for me, those are like, that is not where I want to be. So if I have one, this is probably my evergreen. This one is good for everyone all the time. And like I said, I do read it pretty much every calendar year. So those are my recommendations for books that I read in 2022. Now, I'll be sure and link them down below so that you can get those if you would like. I am planning my 2023 list, so I'd love to hear the recommendations that you have for me. What are you reading that you find to be beneficial? I will tell you, I get a lot of questions about, like, do you only read self-help books? I don't. I do read fiction. My fiction is very sparse, I will say. Probably of the 60 books I read in 2022, 1/3 of them were fiction and 2/3 of them were about learning and growth and development. That's just because that's who I am and what I enjoy reading. But I'm not opposed to fiction. I do try to branch out. My children kind of are like, Mom, are you going to read something different than that genre? I like historical fiction, just so you know. So I would love to hear recommendations of what you're reading in 2023. My goal, I will tell you my number, my goal for 2023 is to read 70 books. And so that is just a little track record. In 2021, I read 52 books. So one a week, right? And then in 2022, I read 60 books. And so in 2023, I'm going to read 70. And I do audiobooks. I do written books. I don't do electronic books. That's just because I believe I'm old school. I like to turn the pages of a book. I have tried electronic books. They're just not my jam. And I'll add too, in 2022, I set a goal to wear out my library card. You heard me right. I wore out my library card. So of the 60 books, I only purchased 4 of them. All of the others I checked out from the library. Now, you may be saying, how do you have that kind of library? Well, you have to know, I live in Houston, Texas. And so there is a huge, massive library system in Houston. And so I'm able to request the books that I want. And while my library that's closest to me may not have it, they are able to connect with other libraries to transfer the book so that I can have it. And that has been huge. That's how I made that work, to get to read the books that I want. Now, granted, when you do that, you don't always get the newest books because you're waiting on the library to get the book. And sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer to read it because someone else has it checked out. Patience, patience, patience. But yes, in 2022, of the 60 books, I only purchased 4 of them. And truth be told, the 2 that I recommended for you, those were purchases. Yeah. But anyways, if you'd like to see more of the books that I read in 2022, let me know down in the comments below. And I would love to hear your recommendations for 2023. What are you reading? What has you really jazzed up? And because I only read basically on recommendations now. I just find that when people recommend books to me, it's usually more in line with what I'm wanting to read than it is if I just pick a book off the shelf. So anyways, well, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you wouldn't mind, share this video with someone you think would benefit from maybe a reading goal, or maybe they're looking for a book like one of the ones that I recommended. I'd love to have them along for the journey, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.